Good morning, listeners. You are listening to Whole Healing with Becky Jo. I am Becky Jo. I am honored, humbled, privileged, and very, very happy to be with you in the studio today. Today is a very gloomy January day here in Wisconsin, and I know by this time in our winter season, many of us are starting to feel the stir-crazy feelings of what they call cabin fever. I myself have been feeling this the last couple weeks. So how do we bring sunshine to our lives when we're surrounded by darkness or what appears to be dark? It's a good lesson for us, and we're going to talk about that today. But first, we're going to get started today. Instead of doing an opening prayer, I'm going to do an open blessing because you guys need blessings today. So many people feeling so many different things going on collectively, universally, and we're going to bless you today. So just taking a nice deep breath. I want everyone just to center yourself. Take a breath, because really the breath that you breathe in is what creates life within you. So let's create some life, okay? So may today there be peace within. May you trust your highest power that you are exactly where you are meant to be. May you not forget that infinite possibilities are meant for you. You are born of faith. May you use those gifts that you have received and pass them on. Pass on the love that you feel in your heart. Pass on all the blessings that have been given to you onto others. May you be content in knowing that you are a child of God. You are a child of the Creator. You are a child of the universe. Let this presence settle into your bones and allow your soul the freedom to sing, dance, and take flight. It is there for each and every single one of you if you so choose to connect with it. And that is a blessing from Mother Teresa. So there is a lot stirring right now, and I want to take just a moment for all of us to just pay tribute to Kobe Bryant. I know everybody's talking about the great loss of this man who not only was very inspirational and really, really served humanity when he was here, but he felt his inner spark, and he followed how he felt and what he thought was his greatest path when he was on earth. And he's really a great role model for all of us. I myself didn't follow him a whole lot. I knew who he was. I'm not a big basketball fan, but one thing that really, really impressed me about him after he's been gone, and you know, it's unfortunate that so many of us pay attention after people are gone, and it's a good lesson for us too. But somebody posted something on social media yesterday. It's really a video of Kobe Bryant playing the piano and singing a very inspirational song. That really is what I want you to think of today as we go through the content of today's show. Because following that strong desire you feel in your heart, following your own guidance, and not living as your stories that other people told you about yourself, living as your own soul light, your own being, what you feel truly deep in your heart you are, rather than staying caged in the prisons in our minds. We all do it. We've all done it. I am very, very much somebody who used to really be imprisoned in all of this. And if I get emotional on the show today and I have tears, know those are sincere, because I know the place that I came from is a very different place than where I'm standing today. Okay? But it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of dedication to your own self and a lot of belief that you can do it. Okay? It also takes a very strong spiritual presence. It really, we can all live and learn and know, you know, what people teach us and show us in day-to-day life. Well, if you do this, then you can do this. We can all look that stuff up on Google, but what we can't do is connect with that higher part of ourselves, that you have to learn on your own, how it works best for you. And I'll tell you, that really will be the key that unlocks the door to your own greatness. I promise you. So let's back up. How many of you are lately feeling your buttons being pushed? Okay. Feeling yourself overreact to situations, rising blood pressures. Maybe you have found yourself in situations where your breathing has become shallow and you're like, oh, geez, what am I doing here? You know, maybe your mind races. Maybe you're somebody who, when you go to bed at night, your mind races and you don't know how to turn that off. So I want you to ask yourself, how many times in the past week have I experienced these things? Maybe you have found yourself, responding negatively, and it may be for no apparent reason. You may not realize why you're feeling like that or what is coming up for you. But really, even if you're having a difficult time staying calm, like, in a work meeting, maybe you're in a work meeting and everybody around you seems to be on a different page than you, and it's really enraging you, like you really are feeling some sort of way inside. Maybe when you're working with colleagues, they hold a different perspective than you, and you always feel like you're the odd man out. Or, maybe you're somebody who, when you read the headlines in your news feed and you're all flipping through your news feeds every day, whether it's on Facebook or whatever social media you're on, maybe you're somebody who, as you flip through that, you really feel anxiety and, you worry about the state of the world. You're somebody who follows the news and really just can't believe that, our world is crumbling around us. Maybe you're somebody who, kind of gets caught in that vibration. But no matter what it is, no matter what is holding you hostage, you guys, these are what we call triggered states. These are what we call heightened reactions, okay? And they're often a result of physical and emotional traumas that you may not even be aware of. Some people are very aware of their traumas. They know exactly why their triggers get tripped. Other people are unaware. Other people don't realize. But a trigger, okay, when we talk about triggers, a trigger is something that sets off a memory tape, okay? Our subconscious mind is always imprinting and tape recording every experience you ever have as a human from the moment of conception. So when you have a memory or a flashback that your body has a significant reaction to, okay, which transports you then back to the event of the original trauma. Okay, we've all had these. We all know what this is. You all understand what I'm saying. But triggers are very personal. There's different things that trigger different people. And, the survivor may begin to avoid situations and stimuli that, he or she thinks might trigger the flashback. We've all heard of that PTSD type of stuff. He or she will probably react to this flashback, trigger with an emotional intensity similar to that which they had at the time of the trauma, okay? So a person's triggers are activated through one or more of the five senses, through sight, through sound, through touch, through smell, and through taste. I think we're all kind of aware of that. But the senses identified as being the most common to trigger someone are sight and sound. So if we see something that in our brain reminds us of a situation, or if we hear something that has a frequency that reminds us, touch and smell and taste aren't too far behind, but a combination of the senses is identified as well, especially in situations that strongly resemble the original trauma, okay? So regardless of how normal it seems to experience these things every day, you guys, it is not, okay? So to make matters more complicated, our own personal wounds energetically and spiritually can merge with the collective trauma, which means that energy, that frequency of trauma that's in the whole entire world, and it's kind of lingering there. So sometimes it creates a situation where very few of us in this world are actually present enough to live happy, to live healthy, to live productive lives in which we reach our true potential or fulfill our purpose in the world. However, the extraordinary good news that I have for all of you today is that there is a great awakening happening all over the planet these days, where the average human is realizing that there is more to the stories we've been told about who we are and what our purpose for being here in this time and space is. My personal story is one of complete transformation, but I did not start out being who I am today. I started out a very, very, very broken little girl, a very, very broken teenager, very, very unaware of how my experiences and traumas were affecting me negatively in my life. And until I had this amazing spiritual awakening in 2012, where I was taken out of my body and I was shown the truth of everything and why I experienced everything I did, and it all made sense. And then I began this long, painful journey from being a caterpillar that felt I had no control over my life and my world. And I mean, I felt completely no control. I made very bad, negative choices based on feeling like I didn't have control anyways, which I know so many of you can relate with. But I let these triggers that I had from all of the traumas I'd been through, I allowed and I let these triggers run my life without even knowing it was happening, okay? Once I had this awakening, you guys, and I observed and I recognized these things, okay, I then could move into a state of really beginning to unravel these entanglements that I was involved in unconsciously. That's the thing. Some of it is unconscious. We don't even recognize or realize we're doing it, but our mind is programmed that way based on what we've been through. So due to what I had learned from the outside world for 30 some years, I had lived a life where I had been lied to, I had been treated less than, I had looked for love but didn't get it in return, and this is so familiar to all of you guys. The people around me that I needed love the most from weren't able to give it to me, and I've been thrown to the wolves by those I trusted the most many, many, many times. And I experienced some of the most horrendous acts of violence, shaming, blaming, guilting, abandoning, rejecting, and even ridiculing that a human being could ever endure from the people I valued the most in my heart and soul. And I wasn't sure if there was any possibility for me for fixing it or coming out of any of it. Underneath that undertow, and I know so many of you are feeling this because you experience this. This is you. If you're hearing this, if you're watching this, if you're listening, you're not here by accident. You need to hear this. So underneath that undertow where I felt like I had absolutely no way of undrowning myself, what I had learned, what I had saw or seen in the world, what I had learned to judge, and what I had thought was, this is just the way it is. There's nothing I can do to change. It's just the way it is. These are my circumstances. These are the cards I was dealt. And so many of you heard this. Oh, those are the cards you're dealt. Oh, nope, that's your DNA. You're going to just have that disease because it's in your lineage. The more I began to explore my own self, my own light, my own spirit, deep, deep, deep inside, why was I making these negative choices? What beliefs did I have about myself and about the world that held me in a prison in my mind? Then I started to realize something. I started to realize really strongly that I had these twisted thoughts and judgments of the world. And when I started looking into it, I learned that these are called cognitive distortions, okay? So I want to talk to you about that a little bit today. When I started to realize I had these cognitive distortions, I I really, really, really started to realize why I felt victimized by everybody around me. Okay? So, cognitive distortions are negative thoughts that we have that are not true. Okay? But we program ourselves out of trying to save ourselves. It's a defense mechanism that we all have, kind of like lying. We use these to justify our own behaviors as the world's fault, as everyone else's fault around us, okay? And it leaves us imprisoned in the victim mentality. And believe you me, I used to do this, okay? I used to live this way. So some examples as written by Dr. David D. Burns, who was an MD who wrote the book, The New Mood Therapy. And I tell you should look this up. And if you guys have a paper and pen, you might want to get it out right now and write some notes about what I'm about to say. So he says that there are several different examples, okay, of distorted cognitive thinking. And the first number one is that all or nothing thinking, okay, which I used to do this. It's when you look at things in the absolute, just black and white categories. Either it's good or it's bad. There's no in between. And I think many of us are stuck in that. That is a very, very deep, heavy prison we put ourselves in our mind. There's also one called overgeneralization. I used to be guilty of this one too, where you view a negative event as a never-ending pattern of defeat. So whatever happened to you, you never, ever, ever let it go. You let that be what runs your world, okay? What runs your life. That's a program that just keeps running. Also, there's one called a mental filter, where you dwell on the negative and you ignore the positives going on in your life. It's like the drop of ink that discolors the entire beaker of water. That is exactly how I used to live my life too. One little thing would disrupt everything in my world, okay? Another one is called discounting the positives, which you insist that your positive qualities don't count. Jumping to conclusions is the next one, and that is where you jump to conclusions not warranted by the facts, and I used to do that too. Mind reading, you assume that people are reacting negatively to you, and I'll tell you, when I was a kid, I used to think, because I could feel everybody's energy, I could feel everybody's emotions around me, and I never really fit in anywhere I went. I didn't fit in my family, I didn't fit in amongst friends and peers. I didn't know where I fit in or why I felt that way. But what I thought is when I felt these negative energies coming from people, their thoughts, I thought it meant that they didn't like me. I thought that I was feeling their discontent for me. But what I learned was it really wasn't. Once I came out of that, I realized it wasn't anything to do with me. It had to do with how they felt about themselves and their own situations and their own lives, okay? So magnification or minimization is the next one. And this one I used to be really, really guilty of too, is where you blow things way out of proportion because you want to exemplify why somebody hurt you or why you feel the way you do. Or you shrink them. Or you say, oh, it's no big deal. Okay? Another one is emotional reasoning, and that's where you reason from your feelings, like, I feel like an idiot, or I feel hopeless, or this means I'll never get better. That's where you just emotionally reason why you are acting the way you are, okay? It doesn't do us any favors when we act like that. And another one is the should statements, where you criticize yourself, or you criticize other people with should-haves, would-haves, shouldn't-have, must, ought to, have to, that type of thing. That's blame and shame and guilt game. That's all part of the manipulation game. That's no good. That won't get you anywhere, guys. The self-directed shoulds lead to feelings of guilt and inferiority. And other directed shoulds lead to feelings of bitterness, resentment, anger, and frustration with other people. So the hidden shoulds are the ones we really need to look at, because those are the rules and should statements that are implied by our negative thoughts, okay? And the next one is labeling. Labeling, instead of saying, I made a mistake, you tell yourself, I'm a jerk, or I'm a loser, or I'm never going to get it, type of things, okay? The next one and final one is self-blame. You find fault instead of solving your problem. You're looking to place blame around you. You blame yourself for something you weren't even entirely responsible for, and I used to do that. Or you blame others and overlook ways you contributed to the problem, and I used to do that too. So once I truly acknowledged these things, that I had this distorted way of thinking, and it wasn't really necessarily my fault. It was my programming. It was what I had been through, and the unconscious part of myself trying to just survive. It's a survival mechanism, okay? It's justifying so that you can feel okay about yourself at the end of the day. And once I truly acknowledged there was distorted thinking going on, I was able to untwist that thinking, you guys. But it didn't stop there. I also started to connect very deeply with my physical body to see what the body's reaction was to these things, okay? So I could then begin to take control of my life. Whenever I would watch myself in a negative thinking pattern, or I would catch myself doing that, or catch myself in a reaction, I would truly just stop, take a moment and pause, okay? I would truly investigate what was happening. I was my own best detective at that point. And this is what I want you guys to understand. You can flip this around. You can change this. So I want to give you some good tools today to use when you have these negative thoughts or these triggers, when they're trying to run the show. It's important, though, once you recognize when and why you are triggered, that you can reprogram yourself to a more positive mindset, okay? You can allow yourself to forgive and release with the idea in mind, okay? Don't automatically stop right there because you heard me say you need to forgive. Some people feel they're not ready to do that yet, but I want you to hear me out, okay? When you can switch your thinking from blame and guilt and shame on them for doing that to me to I am not a victim, I am a victor. You may not be able to control what has happened to you guys. There are things that are out of our control, but I'm talking to you today about the things you can and should control, okay? You can control how you respond to what has happened to you in your life. And you can take control of making choices to stay away from things that will keep leading you down that same path. You can literally flip the script, okay? So there's a saying by Mooji, who I really love. You guys can look him up. It's Mooji. Mooji says that, you know, in that childhood story we all listened to of Hey Diddle Diddle, the cat and the fiddle, the cow jumped over the moon. Well, what he says is that that's a metaphor for no matter what song is playing, right? No matter what song is playing, no matter what thoughts are going through your mind, you have the ability to jump over the moon, or AKA jump over the mind, okay? So let's talk about how to untwist your thinking, okay? So according to all the information that I found when I looked this up for myself and my journey, I found that there are 10 ways to untwist your thinking, and one of them is counter the distortion, which means you guys can do this. I did this. This changed my life. Write down your negative thoughts when you have them so you can see which ones, that you're involved with. This will make it easier for you to think about the problems you're having in your life in a more positive and realistic way. So get your journal out. Write down, you're having negative thoughts. You're having a negative day. You're having a day where you're triggered. Great. That's a blessing. Thank your subconscious mind for bringing that to the forefront so you can heal it. Don't look at it as a bad thing. Look at it as a blessing. Thank you. Because when we work through this, we release it. We don't have to be that anymore, you guys. It's a blessing, okay? So really examine the evidence. Instead of assuming that your negative thought is true, examine the actual evidence for it. Be your best detective, you guys. For example, if you feel that you never do anything right, which many people do, if you feel that you can't succeed no matter what you do, you're always going to fail. I want you, if you feel this way, I want you to list several things that you've done successfully, because I guarantee you that somewhere in your path, somewhere in your journey, you have successfully done some things, okay? What did you do when you were a kid? What kind of trophies did you get? I mean, what have you done? What are you proud of? Shift your thinking, okay? The next thing is the double standard method, and that is, instead of putting yourself down in a harsh, condemning way, which so many people do, and I used to do it too, talk to yourself. Talk to yourself in the same compassionate way that you would talk to a friend or a child with a similar problem. Make yourself the observer. Step outside of yourself and say, you know what, if there was a child that brought this to me, how would I talk to them? What kind of compassion would I give them in my heart? And the next one is the experimental technique. Do an experiment to test the validity of these negative thoughts as they come in. For example, if during an episode of panic or trigger, okay, you become terrified that you're about to die of a heart attack, because some people get in these health fears, and really, truly, if you say you're fearful that you're gonna have a heart attack because your parents did, or you're just according to what you seem to be headed that way, I want you to just step back and ask yourself, what healthy, positive ways can I change this? What choices can I make to undo this, to move myself in a different direction? And one of them could be maybe, starting to exercise every day. Maybe you could run or jog, or, do whatever you can to prove that you have a healthy and strong heart. Keep telling yourself that, and keep making choices to have a healthy and strong heart. You can make that choice. The other one is thinking in shades of gray. And although this method might sound drab, the effects can be absolutely illuminating, okay? Instead of thinking about your problems or nothing at all, evaluate the things on a range from 1 to 100. Okay, when things don't work out as well as you hope they would, and it happens to every single one of us, that's life. Think about the experience, okay? Think about the successes of the experience rather than a complete failure. Really see what you can learn from the situation. How could you have done things different? Instead of putting yourself down and feeling like a failure, then you're going, oh, well, I did actually do well with this, so we're going to take that and we're going to move forward with that. We're going to leave the negativity behind, okay? The other one is the survey method, and you can ask people questions to find out if your thoughts and attitudes are realistic. This is literally you asking those around you to score you and survey you. If you believe that public speaking causes anxiety, if you believe that that's abnormal or that's shameful, ask your friends if they ever felt nervous before they give a talk. I bet you they say yes. Okay, that's just one example of many. The other thing I really, really learned to do was define the terms, and that is, when you label yourself inferior or a fool or a loser, which I used to do, I used to just think that there was nothing good about me because everybody around me was always telling me that I was horrible and I was hard to love and I was, less than. You'll feel so much better when you see that there's no such thing as a fool or a loser. You'll do so much better when you realize that nobody is inferior. Nobody is superior. We're all just here on a journey of self-transformation. We're all here on earth to live and learn and evolve, okay? There's no such thing as better than or less than. If you believe that, then you might want to check your beliefs. Why do you believe that? Go to the source, okay? There's another way. You can simply substitute the language in your life, and I had to do this too, that was less colorful and emotionally loaded. So this method is helpful for the should statements that I talked about before. Instead of telling yourself, I shouldn't have made that mistake, which we've all done, you can say, it would be better if I hadn't made that mistake. Just changing a couple words empowers you. It empowers your speech. It empowers what you say and how you feel about yourself. Because see how that feels. Think about that. The statement, I shouldn't have made that mistake. How do you feel in your stomach when you say that? And then I want you to say out loud, it would be better if I hadn't made that mistake. How does that feel? Doesn't that feel just a little bit better? You're just making it a little bit more empowering, okay? So just changing that, the way you think and speak about yourself, changes everything, okay? And then comes the redistribution. Instead of automatically assuming that you are bad, which I used to do, and blaming yourself entirely for all the problems, think about the many factors that may have contributed to it. Focus on solving problems instead of using all of your energy blaming yourself and others and feeling guilty. Use your energy to create solutions, not more problems or reasons why you should stay stuck there, reasons why you're a victim. The other one is called cost-benefit analysis, and that is where you list, and this is writing in your journal again, list all the advantages and disadvantages of certain feelings that you're having, okay? Like getting angry when your plane is late, or getting frustrated when you're in traffic, or, wanting things to move faster when they're not, okay? A negative thought, like, no matter how hard I try, I always screw up, okay? We've all said that too. Or, behavior patterns, like, so many of us have these behavior patterns that go along with the triggers. If you deeply connect with yourself, you can recognize these within yourself. These behavior patterns, like, for example, overeating to bring comfort to yourself, or, lying in bed when you're depressed because that's what, the behavior that the depression wants you to do. So you're just allowing that. You can also use this cost-benefit analysis to modify self-defeating beliefs you have about yourself. The one that really struck me, that I used to really, really be encaged in, is I must always try to be perfect. And so many of us are stuck in that trap. That is a consciousness trap that will never, ever, ever, ever be true. None of us are meant to be perfect. We need to stop trying to be perfect. I promise you, when I stopped trying to be perfect and I just started trying to be me, no matter what that was, no matter who liked me or didn't like me, as long as I liked and loved me and I felt okay at the end of the day about who I was when I was out and about and what I'd done that day, that's all that matters. It shifts everything, you guys. Once I took back control of my thoughts, then I truly began the process of sifting and sorting through my feelings. Okay? I began writing in my journal, what was I feeling and why did I feel that way? Then I asked myself, what belief is this? Why do I believe this? Is this my belief? Is this someone else's belief? Where did this come from? Because if it's not your belief about yourself, if it's someone else's that you're carrying, you can easily dismiss that. If it's not your truth, why do you believe it? Ask yourself that. Why do I believe this? This isn't true. I'm not that. Really sifting and sorting and getting very deep with yourself, it really, really, really changes everything, you guys. But the next step then is recognizing your feelings and your emotions that are associated with these triggers we talk about. I know. No one wants to talk about feelings, right? Many of us were taught either that it's not okay to talk about feelings, or that you are over dramatic if you share your feelings, or I've even been told that I'm humiliating, by family members who've told me that I just humiliated them because I cried in public at my brother's funeral. I wasn't supposed to do that because that just is humiliating to do. And I held that really close in my heart, and I really shamed myself for that, and I really thought something was wrong with me, but really something was really right with me. But it took doing all of this process of untangling my webs to realize it. Life may not have taught you that emotions are to help you, but it is your truth. They may have taught you that emotions are dangerous and that you should hide them. And perhaps as a child you were told such things as don't cry, or stop crying, or I'll give you something to cry about. So many of you recognize those. But really what that is it's an emotionally tyrannical message that certainly would have taught you to suppress your feelings at all costs in order to fit in. This is the process of unraveling that. This is the process of undoing that. Perhaps your emotions were ignored when you were little. Maybe you were minimized. Maybe you were even laughed at by your parents, who had other things and other children to think about. What matters is that for whatever reason, you learned at a very young age to neither honor or even really feel your own feelings, okay? If you experienced severe, even violent trauma, you learn to automatically numb yourself so as to not feel the next blow, right? Many of you can relate to that. It was a brilliant coping mechanism on the part of the subconscious mind. Let's just, freeze this so quickly when the blow came, so that you would already be numb. I don't want to feel that. I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to go there, right? The problem is that such a coping mechanism was only intended for emergency purposes. Like the higher consciousness part of you may have stored that aside just for emergency, just for the moment, just till things calm down. It was meant to be processed. Emotions are energy in motion. Feelings are our body's, mind, and soul's response to an experience. They are meant to move. Emotions are meant to move through us. Once they move through you, you release them and you're done with it. You don't have to battle it anymore. Doesn't that make sense? So really, stuffing everything down inside and not allowing it to process is really, truly manufactured to save you from imminent danger. We're programmed that way. But it was not to take you through life. It was not meant to hold everything in. And, that energy is stored in our bodies and it breaks down our cells. Many of you know this. I'm just reminding you this. It was not meant to fundamentally alter your system of emotional responses. Yet, that is what occurred. And so many of us have lived most of our lives that way, and at a very young age, you were exposed to what your psyche perceived as danger, okay? Many of you were, and I know I was. So what happened was then my subconscious mind, and yours did too, doesn't know how to make a distinction between dangerous threat or tolerable stress, okay? So the energetic part of you outside of your mind only feels energy and frequencies. So it doesn't know what to let in and what to guard against. So it guards against everything just in case, okay? Your ego structures are that subconscious part of you that keeps you safe while you're in the human experience. So it's just going to guard you from everything. It's not going to let anything in. You in your mind have to allow that experience in, to process it, to let the emotions flow through you and release it, okay? So really central to the holistic healing of your weight issue, if you're somebody who eats for comfort, or any issue really that you have, is to develop a new skill set with which to deal with these unpleasant emotions. Okay? An emotion swept under the rug is not an emotion that goes away, friends. I'm sorry to tell you. You have to pull that rug up and open your heart and dig deep inside. Go into that cave. What is in there and why? Okay? It's simply an emotion that is put somewhere rather than where it should be put, which means you store it in your muscles, in your spine, you store it in your livers, you store it in your kidneys, you store it in your bladders, you store it in your breasts, and it creates cancer, you guys. It's negative energy that makes your body lose its signal. When your body loses signal, your cells don't know what they are. They don't get the signal, like, what kind of cell am I? And then they say, okay, well, I'll just replicate, and that's when you have cancer. Okay? I'm not making this stuff up. But really, it puts inert rather than dynamic energy into your body, stored within you rather than being released. Okay? As noted previously, though, energy cannot be uncreated. Emotional energy cannot be uncreated. It's there until you work through it. And emotions are very powerful forms of energy, you guys. If you're too frightened to feel a feeling, its energy still has to go somewhere. That's what we need to understand. The energy still has to go somewhere. Actually, an emotion is not dangerous at all until it's disowned. Okay? Once an emotion is disowned and you tell that part of yourself, nope, that's shameful, get away, I don't want to deal with you, that's when it becomes dangerous, friends. That is when it becomes very dangerous. And that's when it commonly gets projected onto others too. And in cases of, the overeater or the emotional eater, as we talked about, it gets compressed into your own flesh. That only produces more feelings of shame and humiliation and embarrassment and failure, and resulting in an endless barrage of twisted reasons telling you why you might as well just give up, right? That's where the distorted thinking comes from, you guys. Then you begin defending against being overwhelmed by these emotions because you have them all running through you and you don't know where to start. You actually create emotions that are overwhelming. We actually create that because we get to that level where it's like, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed. You begin to try to keep your emotions at bay, and every one of you can recognize this. Then when you're at that point, you're just like, oh no, I just need to keep it all, stop doing this. But when you do that, you either eat them or you go numb inside so you don't feel them. Or you do things to numb them up, and your triggers are literally the energy in your body trying to release that, or trying to show you, hey, there's something wrong here. Let's take a look. Just like pain is trying to let you know there's something out of alignment in your physical body, okay? But by trying to escape your feelings, you create a whole slew of them that will arrive full force once you realize what you've done. The only feelings you really need to fear, you guys, are those that you ignore. Okay? Truthfully and honestly, ignoring feelings will get you very, very sick physically. Okay? So, in Greek mythology, Poseidon, was the god of the sea, right? If he tells the waves to calm down, then the waves calm down, right? So in the New Testament, Jesus came onto the water and stopped the storm, right? Most of you know that story. But both of these examples are metaphysical descriptions of the effects of the divine on the storms of the inner self. Okay? You guys knew I was going to get spiritual with this eventually. That's what the missing piece is for everybody. We can learn how to, do these mind trainings. But if you are not connected to your own inner spirit, you cannot transcend this. Okay? The divine spark within you is the master of this experience, and you're human, not the slave of the inner sea. Your task is to connect your feelings to the divine spark within you, that you might be lifted above these storms of your subconscious mind. The storms are raging for one reason only, you guys. You know why? Because at the end of the day, your inner self, your soul will not be ignored. If you have no template for honoring your feelings or processing them, bearing witness to them, surrendering to them, and watching them miraculously transform, then they can appear in your life as that frightening energy that appears to be ruling you instead of being ruled by you. Okay? You guys, truthfully, it's time for the slavery to end. Humanity is waking up to realize that we are not enslaved. We are empowered. Okay? It's time for your mastery to begin. That begins today. Mastery of your own energy, of your own life, does not emerge from personal force, but from spiritual surrender, surrendering to your own spirit. And once you have felt a feeling and surrendered to it, you are not simply left with it, you guys. As if you are dangling from that emotional cliff and about to fall into the abyss, which, you can never escape, which is how I used to feel. But when you give a painful emotion to God and say, I don't know how to deal with this, God, but you do. When you let your soul show you your truth instead of listening to what your truth is from human beings who are looking at you from their level of perception based on their traumas and things they've been through. Okay? Look at the difference there. I'm going to give my power to myself and to my Creator, not to the outside world. The thoughts that produced all of this negative thinking and triggers in your mind, like I said, were most likely developed by a need that wasn't met. Somewhere along the line you had a need that was not met. What is that need? Ask yourself, okay? And maybe there was an expectation that wasn't fulfilled, and that kind of creates that hole in our hearts, okay? But when we can surrender and we can allow our highest parts of ourselves to run the show, let your soul run the show, let your heart run the show, not your mind, okay? When you do that, you can truly understand that everything you have ever experienced was on purpose, for your highest evolution, for you to transform, for you to rise. Friends, you are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are not your reactions, and you dang sure are not your traumas. You are meant to live and learn and love above it all. It all starts by going very deep within and untangling that web. One level, one layer at a time. It takes a commitment to excellence and a dream for living the life you came here to live. Knowing, and we all know, anyone watching this or listening to this knows, you are an infinite being. And your limits are only there because you perceive them in your mind. But when you ask your heart what the truth is, and you ask your soul what your guidance is, you will see, hear, and feel a much nicer reality, okay? So let heaven enter you, and hell will go away. The choice is yours. The choice has always been yours. So I wanted to read to you also today, wrapping up the show, the lyrics of a song that's such a beautiful song, and I want every single one of you to feel inspired to look this song up on YouTube and just really listen to it, feel it. The song is called There's a Place. It's by Wild Roses, okay? And it reads, there is a place where you can always go. Come with me. Where it is all right to let your feelings show. Come with me. What a pleasant journey. It isn't very far. We can go together. Stay right where you are. And now it's time to start. It's right here in your heart. There is a place where you can be yourself. Come with me. And it's a place where you can free yourself. Come with me. And you know it's waiting. It's not so far away. Need no reservations. We can go today. Now it's time to start. It's right here in your heart. And the light shines through each window and the door swings wide open. And each question has no answer. It has an answer if you only look inside. There is a place where each sorrow ends. Come with me. Where every hope and truth begins. Come with me. Where every hope and truth begins. Come with me. What a pleasant journey. It isn't far. We can go together. Stay right where you are. And now it's time to start. It's right here. It's in your heart. And now it's time to start. It's right here in your heart. Do you hear me? It is in your heart. What is your heart saying to you? How can you best serve humanity? You came here on a mission to serve humanity. You came here to help. You came here to do. You came here to be. What did you come here for? Remember, it's within you. When you can let go of all of that programming that's keeping you caged in a prison in your own mind, when you can know and understand on a deeper level that everything you've ever been through was for you to rise above, okay? You are not a victim to what other people have done to you. When you can shift your thinking and shift the perception from what they did to me to they did the very best they knew how to do with the circumstances they were put in, okay? This has gone down generation to generation to generation to generation on this planet. These cycles of manipulation and control and lack. We, my friends, are meant to stop these cycles. The cycles end here with us. We are going to reprogram ourselves so that we can spark someone else to be inspired to reprogram themselves. Before we know it, our children will live a very, very different reality in a very, very different world than we did. We're already seeing so many signs of this right now. We have schools that are spending the morning meditating, teaching children to connect with their own inner spark. Okay? We're doing this in hospitals now. We're choosing peace more and more and more and more each day. People are choosing love and choosing peace. And honestly, if you look around at the stores and you know, online and everywhere, the word love is everywhere. It didn't used to be like that. Even 3 years ago, you'd never see people talking about love, you know. So things are shifting, things are changing. And to be honest, the Hopi prophecy where Earth is going to come into this huge purification is happening now. We're in a state of purification on the earth, and those that are not willing to admit that or feel the truth of that will stay where they're at, and that's okay. That's okay. But you can feel your own divinity, your own spark within you by choosing to untangle your webs that are causing you to not feel love in your heart, that are causing you to make choices that are not for your highest and best good, okay? If you want to have a session with me to personally see how I can help you with this, okay, on a deeper level, I'm all for it. My website is www.holistichealing.net. I can do video sessions with you or in person. And, you know, I travel all over the United States doing these healings. I will actually be in Rosemont, Illinois this weekend, Friday and Saturday. So, you know, come see me in person. I absolutely love you guys. I hope you have learned something here today. I want you to take this out into the world and just know that you are not your traumas. You do not have to live like that. You can choose to not live that way, okay? I came up and out of that, and it was the best thing I ever did for myself. And now there's magic and miracles happening all around my life. There's big things happening because I aligned with the very purpose that I came here on the planet to do. And that's where the magic is, you guys. When you align with your higher purpose. We all have one. I love you. Many, many, many blessings. And until next time.